My wife, Amanda, thought I was clueless about what she was up to. She figured I was either too naive or too blind to notice her growing attachment to a coworker named Derek. She assumed I'd just accept it, pretend it wasn't happening, and keep playing the role of the loyal husband. But she had no idea I'd already started putting the pieces together. There were signs. Plenty of them. She started staying late at work more often. Her wardrobe got an upgrade almost overnight. She got weirdly touchy and distant all at once. And the things we used to enjoy together? Suddenly, she couldn't care less. I tried to talk to her about it. Multiple times. Each time, she brushed me off, chalking it up to my insecurities or claiming I was being too possessive. I wasn't imagining things. I just couldn't let it go, not without knowing for sure. So I hired a private investigator. I told Amanda from the beginning, back when we were dating and throughout our 10-year marriage, that cheating was my one and only deal breaker. No gray areas. No second chances. So there I was, sitting in the office of Jake Sloan, the PI I'd hired, listening to his report. When he first told me Amanda hadn't technically cheated yet, I felt a weird rush of relief. But that feeling didn't last. Not yet, he said. That's how he phrased it. Because, according to his findings, it was only a matter of time. Turns out Amanda and Derek called each other their work spouses. That phrase made my skin crawl. Amanda had one spouse, me. Some people might think that kind of label is cute or harmless. I didn't. To me, it meant she was emotionally involved with another man. And I was right. Jake showed me pictures, lots of them. Amanda and Derek having lunch together every day, just the two of them. Holding hands. Sitting way too close. Hugging. Even a few photos where they kissed. I wanted to rip Derek apart. They'd stay late at work together too, even when there wasn't a real reason. It was like they were stretching the day out on purpose, avoiding their homes, stealing whatever time they could. Jake told me he'd managed to access some of Amanda's emails and messages. I knew it wasn't legal. I couldn't use any of it in court. But I didn't care. In our state, proving infidelity in a divorce is tough anyway. I didn't need it for the legal side. I needed it for me. He wouldn't show me the messages themselves, wouldn't even let me read them. But he gave me a summary. He said Amanda never trashed me in her messages. That was something, I guess. Derek tried to badmouth me, but Amanda didn't let it happen. Not on paper anyway. Still, the text confirmed everything. It was romantic. Intimate. Maybe they hadn't dropped the L word, but they didn't need to. It was all there in the way they talked to each other. And then Jake told me something that made my blood run cold. Derek's wife was heading out of town for 3 days to visit her mom. He and Amanda were planning to take advantage of that window. They wanted to finally sleep together. Only one thing stood in their way, me. They were trying to figure out how they could make it happen if I was still around. Amanda didn't want to use the old girls' weekend excuse. She was scared I might reach out to her friends and uncover the lie. So they scrapped that plan. Then she floated an idea to get me out of town, suggested I go on a golf trip with the guys. I remember brushing that off at the time, thinking it was random. Now I knew exactly why she said it. In the end, they came up with something else. Something bold. Something pathetic. They decided on honesty. Derek actually convinced Amanda that if she just told me what was going on, I'd go along with it. That I'd let it happen, just to keep her happy. That somehow, sleeping with him would make our marriage stronger. He seriously believed that. And what crushed me was that Amanda believed it too. She genuinely thought I'd be okay with it. There was no way I was going to tolerate this. And if Amanda couldn't see that, maybe she really was out of touch with reality. Jake Sloan, the PI, told me that was all the intel he had for now, so I took the report and went home. I asked him to keep monitoring her messages and to let me know if anything changed. That Friday, Sloan called again. He told me Amanda was planning to have a talk with me after work on Monday. She was going to come clean, sort of. Her plan was to tell me she'd be going out with Derek that Friday night. Dinner, dancing, and then a hotel room. They planned to spend the night together. Depending on how things went, she'd come back home on Saturday. Or maybe Sunday. They had actually rehearsed the whole thing, her speech, and convinced themselves I'd go along with it. They were expecting me to be upset at first, maybe even angry, but Amanda planned to reassure me that it was just a one-time thing. Of course, they both knew that was a lie. To top it off, she thought she'd throw me a bone afterward. She'd have sex with me as a sort of thank you gift, for understanding. Like I'd be thrilled to be handed Derek's leftovers. How thoughtful of her. They even joked about the whole thing, calling it the intervention. But I was about to flip that script. Their intervention? It was going to be my reckoning. That weekend I sat with it. I thought through every possible scenario. Did I even want to save my marriage? Could I? My plan started forming naturally as I sorted through all the emotions. In the end, I decided to confront it head-on and put an end to it, for good. Back when Amanda and I first got married, things were amazing. We were happy, really happy. She was my best friend. My partner in everything. My lover. But somewhere along the way, all of that started to fade. Maybe it's just how things go. Maybe nothing good lasts forever. Or maybe I had some outdated, hopelessly romantic idea of marriage, like we were supposed to weather everything together, side by side. We'd both been through divorces before. Sometimes I wondered if the problem was us, or just marriage in general. How do you keep love and passion alive in a world that's moving a mile a minute? With social media, hookup culture, and instant gratification, maybe traditional marriage is as outdated as cassette tapes. I briefly considered letting Amanda go. Letting her be with Derek. But that idea didn't last long. There was no way in hell I was going to roll over and hand my wife to that guy. So when Amanda called me just after lunch on Monday, I was ready. "Hey, Amanda," I said, surprised to hear from her during work hours. She hadn't called me at work in a while, and I wondered if something was up. She greeted me with a chipper "Hi, honey," and for a second, I wondered if she used that same tone with Derek. I pushed the thought aside and asked if she'd be home on time, since she said she wanted to talk. She confirmed it, said she'd be back around 5:15. I told her I had something important to share too. She paused. I could feel her curiosity through the phone. She asked what my big news was. But I held it close. "Let's talk about it tonight," I said. "Face to face." Then I gave her a quick excuse about finishing a report, and ended the call. I let my boss know I was taking the rest of the day off. He didn't ask questions. Later that afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table waiting for her to get home. The wine was chilled, a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, and I had 2 glasses out. Just to keep the illusion alive a little longer. At exactly 5:27, I heard the garage door. I kept calm. She came in alone, keys and purse hitting the table, and I was relieved Derek wasn't with her. That would have made things messy. "Hi, sweetheart," I greeted her, mirroring the word she'd used earlier. I smiled and asked if she needed a minute to settle in, or if she wanted to jump straight into our talk. She was caught off guard. Clearly hadn't expected me to be so eager to get into it. I wanted to keep her on her toes. Keep control of the room. She admitted she thought I'd stall, wait longer before diving in. But she agreed we should get it over with and sat down across from me at the table. I offered to go first. "Mind if I start?" I asked, already knowing her answer. She hesitated, then gave a small, unsure nod. That was all I needed. I poured us both a glass of wine, and Amanda accepted hers without hesitation, down half of it before I even sat back down. I topped off her glass and took a breath. I told her I'd been doing a lot of thinking lately. That I wasn't going to sugarcoat things or drag them out. Then I paused, on purpose, letting the silence hang just long enough to get under her skin. She leaned forward a little, eyes locked on mine. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft but curious. I looked her in the eye and said it straight. I want a divorce. The words seemed to hang in the air. For a second, she just sat there, blinking like she hadn't heard me right. Then came the emotions: shock, confusion, fear, all flickering across her face in waves. But it didn't take long for those emotions to settle into something else. I could see it, the realization that maybe I'd found out about her and Derek. What? Why? She finally asked, her voice shaky. I kept my voice even. My feelings have changed. I don't love you anymore. That hit her hard. You could see the way it knocked the wind out of her. You what? She stammered. I've fallen out of love with you, Amanda, I said again, calmer this time. I'm not sure when exactly it happened. That was a lie. I knew exactly when things shifted, but I didn't feel like sharing that piece of truth. What are you talking about? She whispered. Her eyes were starting to well up. I leaned in a little. I wanted her to understand, not just the words, but the weight behind them. Do you remember when we first got married? How close we were. How we did everything together? I asked. She gave a slow nod, like she was bracing herself for what was coming next. I reminded her of all the little things. How we used to grab lunch together a few times a week. How I'd get excited just thinking about coming home to her. The pottery class she convinced me to take, even though I was terrible at it. She smiled a little at that, eyes locked on mine. I loved those classes, she said quietly. Watching you try so hard, helping you. You were so into it. I nodded. Same with those Christmas village houses we painted together. Tedious as hell, but we enjoyed it. She laughed through her tears. Yours always looked better than mine. Only because I cheated and copied your color schemes, I said with a small grin. The memories kept flowing, painting those huge posters she bought in Myrtle Beach, even before adult coloring books were trendy. We still had hundreds of those pens tucked away somewhere. Like our relationship, most of them had dried up. Amanda jumped in quickly. My love hasn't dried up. But I didn't respond. I just kept going. Our friends used to say they were jealous of us. Said we did everything together. Remember those long walks we'd take, holding hands the whole time? She nodded, silent. If I had to run to the hardware store for something stupid like grass trimmer line, you'd come with me. If you needed to try on clothes, I'd be outside the fitting room waiting. You always liked coming shopping with me, she said, trying to challenge the narrative. I liked being with you. I didn't care about the clothes, I replied. Most of the time, I was on my phone. But I could have stayed home watching a game. I didn't. I wanted to be with you. I brought up how the other women in the neighborhood were always getting together for bingo nights or bachelorette parties. She never went. Because I liked hanging out with you, she said, her voice cracking. I always said I'd rather be with you than the hens. And we had our nights, I said softly. Under the covers, watching our favorite movie together. You crying at the same scenes every time. She wiped her eyes. I loved that movie. I know, I said. We must have watched it 100 times. I would have watched it 100 more. When I mentioned divorce again, she blurted out that she didn't want that. Said she pictured us growing old together, taking cooking classes, ballroom dancing, reading books in bed. She had this whole future laid out in her mind. But I'd been living in the past. The distance between us had grown too wide. I don't know exactly when it started, I said, staring into her eyes. But I know how it felt. We used to eat out 2 or 3 times a week. Then it dropped to once a week, if that. And that change? That was her doing. She claimed she didn't have time to leave the office for lunch anymore. That was a lie. She was still going out, just not with me. Eventually, our lunches stopped altogether. So I started eating with coworkers. I started spending more time with my coworkers, and honestly, I started enjoying their company. Maybe a little too much. When I told Amanda this, I exaggerated just enough to make my point, careful not to blame her outright. I didn't want this to turn into some dramatic fight, not yet. That wasn't the goal. I wanted to lay it out calmly, clearly. Let it settle in her mind. Our old habit of getting home early just to spend time together had completely faded. We both started working late. And when we finally did come home, it felt like we were strangers, distracted, distant. She asked why I never brought it up. I told her she was right, I should have. But I also reminded her I had tried, many times before. I told her I just wanted to understand why spending time together had stopped being important to her. It felt like I was taking the blame, trying to own the distance between us. But the truth? I knew where it started. I knew who caused the real fracture. Still, if I dropped the Derek bomb now, the whole thing would explode. It would be over. And I wouldn't get the chance to say what needed to be said. I'd just be the jealous, insecure husband again, the guy who couldn't handle a close friendship. So before I confronted her with what I knew, I wanted her to really feel the loss of what we used to have. I wanted her to think about her part in destroying it. We slowly stopped doing everything together. She started going out for girls' nights, bachelorette parties. I picked up poker nights. She went to spas on the weekends. I started golfing again. We went from spending entire weekends side by side to barely talking about anything other than the weather or the news. Even our sex life, what used to be such a powerful connection between us, had fizzled out. I reminded her of how we used to be early on. How we couldn't keep our hands off each other. 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes twice a day. I'd playfully grab her while she was cooking. We'd skip dinner just to spend the evening tangled up together. The hot tub? We used to make it a regular part of our weekends. We hadn't even touched it in over a year. Then Amanda tried to flip it, said maybe I didn't want sex anymore. I laughed. Oh God, no. I've always wanted it. I still do, I said. I just stopped wanting it with you. That hit hard. I knew it would. She always thought she was the one holding back. That she'd rejected me. But now she realized it was me who'd lost interest. It almost made me laugh, if it didn't hurt so damn much. Amanda looked stunned. What do you mean? You said I didn't want it. You didn't, I said. Not with me. You were just going through the motions. I could see it. You weren't into anything new, anything even slightly adventurous. It felt like you were just waiting for it to be over. Like you'd rather be knitting. I told her I missed the passion. The weekends we used to spend lost in each other. I mentioned how she didn't even want me to take my time and really please her anymore. I said our sex life had become dull. That I'd faked the last few times just to get through it. She snapped back. You came, didn't you? I shook my head. You made us use condoms, even though you're on birth control. You never paid attention to them. So yeah, I could fake it. Just roll off, and toss the empty wrapper. You never even noticed. She stared at me stunned. Her face went red. I couldn't tell if it was anger or shame. Maybe both. I topped off her wine. She took a long, hard sip. Then I said what I knew she'd been dreading. It was only a matter of time before one of us started looking for connection somewhere else. I paused. Then added, and by one of us, I don't mean me. That's when she snapped. Are you cheating on me? Are you in love with someone else? She asked, angry, hurt, and suddenly very defensive. I shook my head. No. I would never do that to you. To us. Not after everything we've been through. You know how it felt when our exes betrayed us. I'd never repeat that. She looked away, ashamed. I'm sorry, she muttered. That was unfair. I know you wouldn't. But she still couldn't look me in the eye. Her hands were shaking. And then, with her voice barely steady, I shifted the conversation again. This time, to something else. I told her we should wait until after the divorce to be together again, for the first time. It was a subtle way of telling her there was someone new. Someone I hadn't touched yet. But someone I was definitely thinking about. That's when I hit her with my big news. I told Amanda I'd met with a lawyer. The divorce papers were finalized. She'd be served on Friday. Her face went pale. Wait, what? Are you serious? I nodded. Yeah, you'll be served on Friday. She looked like she was trying to read my face, figure out if I was bluffing. But I wasn't. I even had to stop myself from smirking. I told her this was for the best. We could both finally be free. Let's stop pretending, I said. The last 10 years? They've been a waste. That part wasn't entirely true, not for me. So I corrected myself. They weren't a waste for me. But I think you've wanted this for a long time, too. She shook her head, eyes wide. No! I don't want a divorce. I love you. I want to be married to you forever. But I'd already made my peace with it. I told her I didn't love her anymore. That this was a no-fault divorce state, meaning everything would be split 50-50 unless someone could prove infidelity, which wasn't likely. Not legally, anyway. So I said we'd split the money evenly. I'd go to the bank the next day. Open new accounts. Get new credit cards. Cancel utilities. The house? Already scheduled to go on the market Wednesday. Amanda looked overwhelmed. Stop, she said through tears. Just stop. But I told her I'd already packed my things. I was going to stay at a hotel until I found a more permanent place. She could keep the house for now, at least until it sold. Wait, just stop for a second, she cried, her voice rising. Why Friday? Why does it have to be Friday? I tilted my head. Because that's your big date night with Derek, remember? She froze. Mouth open. Eyes wide. Like she'd just been sucker punched. That's the night you two planned your romantic getaway, right? Dinner. Dancing. A hotel room. The whole fantasy. Before she could get another word out, I pulled a folder from under the table. It was the private investigator's summary. I flipped to the part about her weekend plans. You two really thought this through, I said, flipping the pages with deliberate slowness. The Gaylord Texan, huh? Fancy. She started to speak, but I cut her off. Let me guess, you were gonna tell me it's not what it looks like. That you were just talking? I pointed to one section in the report. Here's where it mentions you and Derek kissing at lunch. Got pictures, too. Amanda's eyes filled again. She looked like she'd been hit by a truck. I'm sorry, she whispered. I smiled, genuinely this time. That's funny. Now I remember exactly when I stopped loving you. Her head snapped up. It was the day I found out you were planning to turn me into some clueless cuckold. Just like what happened with my ex. She rushed out an apology, desperate to explain. I don't love Derek, she insisted. It was just a one-time thing, to, rekindle us. I blinked. You were going to sleep with him, to bring us back together? She nodded. He said it would turn you on. That it'd spice things up. After Friday, we'd spend the rest of the weekend reconnecting. You honestly thought I'd be excited to sleep with you after he did? I asked. I thought it would help. I thought you'd see how much I still wanted you, she said. I shook my head. Amanda, I wanted you to be happy with me. Not with another man. But it's not cheating if I have your permission, she blurted, her voice cracking. It is absolutely cheating, I said, my voice steady now. And you were never going to get my permission. Not now. Not ever. I leaned back in my chair, tired and angry. I should have known. I should have seen it coming. I let boredom and loneliness get the better of me. I let you drift. She looked at me, eyes wide, like I'd just admitted something unforgivable. Bored? Lonely? We were happy. In love. How could you feel that way? I don't know, I said honestly. Amanda shifted tactics. Maybe it's because you pulled away. You stopped having lunch with me. You stopped being around. You created that distance. She paused. And maybe that's why I turned to Derek. Maybe we were both lonely. I stared at her. So you're saying I made you cheat? No. I I didn't think I was pushing you away. You told me you were too busy for lunch. You. She was trying to rewrite the past. And I wasn't about to let her. I had even texted Amanda, telling her to go to lunch without me. She took that as my decision to stop having lunch together, and figured that, since I never brought it up again, I hadn't even noticed the change. She told me I'd been so wrapped up in my own world, I didn't realize I was losing her. And then, voice shaking, she said she didn't want Derek, she wanted me. She wanted us, back the way we used to be. She apologized, admitted she'd screwed up, that she'd given up on us. But I just shook my head. It's too late. Amanda started begging. Said she'd quit her job, take another position, never speak to Derek again. She swore she loved me. That she hadn't actually cheated because they hadn't had sex. She called herself an idiot for letting it go that far, said Derek meant nothing to her, and pleaded with me not to leave. I told her it wasn't that simple. She tried to say I stopped her in time, but I pushed back. If you'd slept with him, it would have sealed it. But everything up to that point, it was betrayal just the same. We were just friends, she insisted. I leaned forward. Amanda, I'm supposed to be your best friend. Not him. She collapsed, face in her arms, sobbing. She swore she'd never neglect me again. Never take me for granted. She begged. Can't we just call this a huge mistake? Please, forgive me. But I couldn't. This wasn't just a mistake. It was betrayal. Of us. Of what we had. My heart was always yours, she whispered. You're the one I love. I was trying to give my body to another man, but you stopped me. Doesn't that mean something? I asked her if my love meant so little to her that she couldn't even fight for it. You mean everything to me, she sobbed. I'd die for you. I stood up. I don't love you anymore. That broke her. She screamed, rushed over, tried to grab me, pleading, sobbing, desperate. But I didn't budge. I believe you're sorry, I said calmly. But that doesn't change the fact that I don't feel the same way anymore. I reminded her she still had Derek for comfort. That's when she dropped the last bomb. Derek was married. He didn't want anything more than sex. I smiled. Well, his wife might have something to say about that. I walked over to my bag and pulled out another folder. Inside was everything: photos, summaries, a copy of the divorce proposal. I handed it to her. My lawyer's the same one Derek's wife hired, I said. Go ahead, read it. Amanda panicked. Please, don't do this. If you decide to come with me to the bank tomorrow, just call. Please. But I didn't respond. I stood, walked out the door, and left the sound of her crying behind me. Amanda struggled with the divorce. To avoid a long, messy court battle, I agreed when the judge recommended marriage counseling. Surprisingly, it helped. More than I expected. The sessions gave us a safe space, somewhere we could actually talk, without judgment. Amanda finally understood how dangerously close she'd come to destroying our marriage. I got to express the pain and humiliation she caused me. Our counselor was impressed by how far we came. After a few sessions, I moved back home. And slowly, we found each other again. We had passion. Amanda embraced my desires with the kind of fire I thought we'd lost forever. A year later, it felt like we were back at the beginning. She left her job and joined my company. We drove to work together. Had lunch together, not out of routine, but because we wanted to. We started doing everything together again. We decorated a little Christmas tree. Finished those old half-painted canvases. Took another ceramics class. Signed up for ballroom dancing. One night, I found that old box of colored pens we thought had dried out. Turns out, most of them still worked. That night, we curled up under a blanket, watching You've Got Mail, again. And halfway through, Amanda kissed me, her eyes suddenly full of tears. I panicked for a second, my heart catching in my chest. Then she smiled and said, You're going to be a daddy. I wiped her tears, kissed her forehead, and in my best Tom Hanks impression whispered, Don't cry, shopgirl. I'm just obsessed with happy endings.